Hi everybody, and welcome to the Endless Celts Podcast. I hope you're well. Who's listening and also going to watch along or listen along after. Such a manic evening. Kids trying to be settled and things of that nature. And then also, when I was going live, I was told to post on Twitter now. You have to have a premium account, so there's no longer a live feed to Twitter, otherwise known as X at this precise moment. But Gav, mate, how have you been? You keeping well?
Is it my Wi-Fi or everybody else's Wi-Fi?
I think it must be you. Can you hear me, James?
Aye, I can hear you fine, mate.
Fair dues. Sorry.
So
How are you, Gav?
yeah. No, it's just that you started talking in like dialect, you know. And I thought it was your Wi-Fi, but it must be mine transgressing. I'm good, mate. I'm good. Summer, the Euros is over. We're waiting for Celtic to kick off, and it's about your patience, isn't it? Are you going to lose your rag over the progress of the transfer window? But I think we're keeping our cool so far. There's not been too many fights in the group chat so far. But aye, doing well. And I'm wearing the USA top from 1994 because Celtic are in the USA right now.
That is a very cool and seamless link. I like that. And hopefully you can hear me better. Gav, I'm trying to reserve my voice. As I said, there's kids and they're not really settled, but we're just going to have to roll with it. And if I need to jump off, I need to jump off. But James, what about yourself, mate? We'll get into the transfer talk and things shortly. But have you been? What have you been up to? How's your summer so far?
Aye, all good, mate. We've just been working away, got a wee couple of weeks off coming up in a couple of weeks, so looking forward to that. But unfortunately, working tomorrow morning, so need to be sensible tonight. But no, I'm really looking forward to the games in America, albeit for friendlies. But it feels as if it's been a while since I know we've had a couple of kind of glorified bounce games, but it feels as if it's been a while for we've seen the proper fitba. So I'm looking forward to staying up for the games.
Fuck, I think I'd be out cold sleeping, if I'm honest, because I've had the kids all weekend. I'll be absolutely busted. But Gav, I mean, you talked about patience with the signings and patience with the transfer window so far. Going to the States, it looked like we were potentially going to have zero new players anyway, joining up with a squad in America. As you're saying, you're wearing the American top from '94, the campaign over there. What's your opinion? Kasper Schmeichel's come in. Sinsalo's come in. From Aston Villa. Kasper Schmeichel from Anderlecht, who left and got him for a free. We paid around £1 million for Sinisalo from Aston Villa. By all accounts, he had a great season at Exeter City. I think if we're talking about save percentages, I think him and Schmeichel are in the top end of the leagues they were playing in the Belgian league and also League One in England. So that's good. But with two new additions, are you happy about it so far?
I think with the Schmeichel thing, sometimes whenever news comes out, it's better to kind of let it digest first rather than just opening your mouth and just saying the first thing that comes to mind. I've had a couple of days to think of it. Like yourself, I've made that mistake before. So I've let it kind of percolate for a couple of days now, and I've kind of almost came round full circle. At the start, I had a hang up about we've had the notice since February that Hart was leaving. We've had ample time to search for a new keeper. And people online, I know that you shouldn't kind of get too dogged down about that, but people were basing the polar opposites of you go for Barkas, a young keeper you've scouted well, it doesn't go well, so don't go for that. And then people are saying, but Hart, experienced older keeper, go for that, and there's no nuance between. So I think in general I was disappointed at the start, but now I've thought about it, I'm quite excited about the scenario that we've got, the forward planning that we've got. So Schmeichel, he's still on form. He's not lost it. He's not like Joe Biden right now, where you need to get him to fuck, Schmeichel has still got it despite his age and despite the fact that I think he's marginally older than Joe Hart. So for a 37-year-old keeper, it probably doesn't get you excited. But whenever you think about it, if we're going to get Schmeichel for one season, then okay. He fills the void for experience, which Hart has definitely left, and that's a massive, massive gap. Especially whenever you're doing a turnover in the summer, you're losing experience. You want to bring in people who he knows the British game. He knows so nothing in Scotland is going to phase him, and whatever crops up in Europe, it's not going to phase him. He's been there before, so he'll be, right up there with Callum McGregor in terms of experience. He's definitely an able goalkeeper, but he's not one for the future. So whether he does the job for 1 year or potentially we mutually renew it for a second year, happy with that. I was a little bit skeptical about bringing in Sinisalo, and people say, well, he's going to get mentored by this guy and he will be our number one next year or the following year. And I was thinking, well, how do you best serve a keeper who's going to be kind of earmarked for the number one job? Do you put him out on loan, or does he not play any games at all and watches from the sidelines? How does he best develop? And I was thinking, well, surely the best way to develop is you play games, especially at that age, because you're not going to gain any experience, on the bench. But overall, whatever we do, whatever we decide to do, I'm not overly concerned. I think Schmeichel will definitely do a job for next season, potentially for another season if we do renew. And the boy Sinisalo, if he's not up to par by the time that Schmeichel is going, then Stevie Woods will have his finger on the pulse by that point. He'll know, he'll be able to forecast if the guy is going to be good enough. And it gives us another 12 months
to get Fraser Forster in a free.
Yeah,
basically.
Repeat the same cycle. Repeat, whether it be another older keeper or whether we have to, go for a younger keeper. But we can watch the progress of this Sinisalo guy to gauge if he's going to be good enough. But Schmeichel, we have not lost out quality-wise, which is the most important thing, and leadership as well, which I've touched upon. So, yeah, I've kind of came round full circle. I've calmed down, and I'm. It's safe. It's a safe pair of hands we've got, so we're good.
I mean, you mentioned the fact that Stevie Woods would have his finger on the pulse. I mean, we've had since Christmas time to put many fingers on different pulses, and we ended up landing on a player that Brendan Rodgers has worked with in the past. And look, I'm not downing Schmeichel. I do think, in hindsight, it is a good signing. Sanfran comes in. Just wondering how Stephen is going to possibly squeeze in Northern Ireland into this episode. I don't know. Did I say that a lot? I always think I say Ireland. I don't know. Maybe I do. But then I think from the other side of it, from what Gavin was saying, kind of come around to the idea of Red Scotland come in previously. Livakovic is a keeper many of us expected. We've seen the rumours. Again, there was a bid for under 8 million. He would have been a snip. As it is, we have a semi-retired guy and another project. I'm done with this board. How are you feeling? I'm James with the two goalkeeping signings.
Probably a wee bit similar to Gav. Don't get me wrong, if you take each goalkeeper that we've signed on an individual basis, if you look at, if it was only Schmeichel we signed, then absolutely it'd be a free-for-all on the board. Obviously replacing a guy that's just retired with a guy 5-6 months older than him, who's just literally kicking the can down the road for a season. But to then bring in this Sinisalo guy who, for what we've heard, seems to be highly rated. I know it's only £1 million or whatever. He doesn't control the price tag, but for what we've seen, he's a young goalkeeper, 22-year-old. He's had a full season under his belt in League One last year, which for a goalkeeper, regardless of the levels, probably pretty rare. And I think he was one of the best goalkeepers in League One last year. So, on their own, if we only signed either or, then fair enough, I'd be on here for a molding match in terms of that position. But to sign both together, for me, it does make sense. I think I'd imagine that Sinisalo will come in, probably play the cup games, and will obviously learn for Schmeichel and also Stevie Woods. And Stevie Woods doesn't have a bad record in terms of Celtic goalkeepers, Barkas aside, in his time here. So, I think that will be it's forward planning for me, which is something that we've accused the board time and time again of just no doing. And we've got a couple of goalkeepers in Oyemi and Clark who are apparently highly rated. So who's to say in a year's time or 2 years' time they won't be ready to come in and take the second choice goalkeeper? Sinisalo obviously been promoted to the first. So no, I'm happy enough, and look, I'll be the first to come on and moan about transfers and boards and whatnot. But nah, I'm happy enough, to be fair.
Yeah, I mean, when it first happened, obviously we're having banter back and forth and stuff in the chat. And what was it Gavin said about Biden? Schmeichel's not that level yet. Do you know what I mean? That kind of incompetence hasn't set in. But I think for me, what I was expecting, Gav, would have been like what Red Scotland was saying, Livakovic, a statement number one. And then you could still have money left over to bring in a Sinisalo as well to be the kind of understudy. Kasper Schmeichel seems to me, and look, I don't want to push on a signing that is a good one in all intents and purposes here in terms of what he provides, the experience, the level he's been playing at. He was the number one at Denmark, their captain, and things of that nature. But it is, to me, it's a familiar face to Rodgers. Is it a case of there was multiple targets before we got the Schmeichel, or would you be of the mind that Kasper Schmeichel was the number one choice since Joe Hart announced he was retiring? Because there's a lot of people saying, is this the kind of board playing thing again where they didn't bid the amount of money that a target needed, target slipped through the net, all that type of thing? Or do you think that Rodgers was like, no, I want Schmeichel, that's the end of it?
I think it would be a case where the scouting department, can we just highlight that we have still not brought in a head of recruitment yet? I would think that the scouting department, whoever occupies that department, have brought up a list of names and they presented it to Brendan Rodgers and said, these are the people that we could maybe go for. And Brendan Rodgers has looked at that. And they might have even suggested, but by the way, Kasper Schmeichel might be available. Not in February they would have suggested that, but probably by the end of the season. It might have been them who suggested Kasper Schmeichel, and they're like, well, you've worked with the guy. Apparently, he's going to be free in the summer. It could have been them. It could have been Brendan. It could have been an agent touting him. It could have been from a number of sources who had the idea to go for Kasper Schmeichel. But I would imagine that Brendan Rodgers' experience and knowledge of Kasper Schmeichel and his faith in him at this stage in his career, he had better faith in going for Schmeichel for a safe pair of hands for another 12 months compared to the names that were presented to him. So I think that if there was a winning candidate, an overwhelmingly winning candidate from the names that were presented from the scouting department, we probably would have went for that. We probably would have tested the waters. But I would imagine that there was a lack of that. And so we've been kind of lucky in a way to find out that Schmeichel is available again. By the way, another one of my reservations about Schmeichel was that I think this will be his fourth club in 4 years.
Yeah, 4 years, but yeah.
From what we understand, is playing performances for the national team and for his club teams, he's not dropped the ball. It might be for one reason or another, family fallouts with the senior management, who knows, but it's not that he's a bad keeper that he's found his way to us. It's not like Hart, who was down on his luck and he needed, a team who were like that. The thing with Hart, it was mutually beneficial for him and for us. But with Schmeichel, it almost seems like a bit of a coup for us to get Schmeichel.
I wouldn't say a coup. I wouldn't say it's a transfer coup. In my opinion, I think the guy was free. I don't think he would have had many suitors. I don't think he would have had much interest. In terms of top clubs, I think Celtic, and if you're competing against the likes of Genk or Anderlecht to re-sign him, or Standard Liège or whoever it may be, them mid-tier European teams, I think for Kasper anyway, that would have been a clear choice to pick Celtic for the stature of club. One last kind of hurrah, one last push for a winning league medal, trophies, domestic cups, European football. So we offered him that. I don't agree with the transfer coup. I think there was so many, like you said, Gav, to be fair, I think there was probably maybe a lack of options. I think there was a lack of options that maybe surrounded Rodgers from the recruitment team. Obviously, Mark Lawwell and the golf shop manager left. So whoever what names they had left with them, hopefully, and aren't stored in that filing cabinet. But even in the comments as well, it says 50-50. Plunge McNugget saying Celtic are a business club. I think we're all used to that. And I read Scotland said he would have sent Schmeichel to the Ghostbusters, because a lot of these professional players say it's a dream come true playing for Celtic, but only come in the twilight of their career. So you can understand the frustration. And again, I do want to reiterate, I think it will be a good signing overall, that experience, and we'll come on to the goalkeeping department as a whole shortly. But do you think it was a transfer coup, James, to get him over the line?
Nah, if you're talking about a coup, then Livakovic would have been a coup for Celtic if we were to sign him. I don't think Schmeichel is at this point in his career, but for what we're led to believe, he did have the offer of another year at Anderlecht as well. So I don't know. I think I'm kind of coming at it for the opposite side when I'm thinking about Sinisalo as well. Like, if he is as highly rated as is made out to be, and look, the last goalkeeper we signed as number 2 was Segrist, and Segrist came when he was 29, 30, which I get, obviously for a goalkeeper is young, but realistically I don't think he was ever going to become number 1 even in the long term, regardless of how good he done it at the United. It was a bit similar to Zaluska for me, probably a good backup, but never really going to be number 1 in the long term, obviously barring injury. But if Sinisalo is as good as made out, and look, I understand the frustrations, and I totally subscribe to the idea that we've had the best part of a year really to get somebody signed up, and Joe Hart was out of contract at the end of the year regardless if he was retiring or no. So I understand that, and I totally agree with that, and we've landed up, like you're saying, somebody on a free that Rodgers has worked with before. But as I say, when you pair it with the both of them, we've maybe looked at it and we fancy Sinisalo for the long term, but he's just maybe not ready yet. And look, and as I said earlier, if we only signed one and no the other, then I'd be on here moaning about it as well. So could it be that Aston Villa loaned Sinisalo out to, say, the Championship or whatever for the season upcoming, as opposed to selling it to us, and then he's a good season, and at that point we can't afford them. So I think there is a bit of forward planning, and I think if it goes the way it has been planned, then Sinisalo will become the number 1 at the end of the season, or possibly the end of the season after, depending on the contract situation with Schmeichel. But well, I do understand the frustrations, and to be honest, I was the same when it was, because I was always of the opinion that we would only sign one goalkeeper this summer. So if that one goalkeeper was Kasper Schmeichel, then I would have been on here saying you're replacing a guy that's retired with a guy that's 6 months older than him. It's the most Celtic thing ever. It's kicking the can down the road and all the rest of it. But to have brought this 22-year-old guy that's highly rated in behind him, 22, full season under his belt, league football, full internationally for a goalkeeper, I mean, it doesn't happen very often. So he must have something, the boy, which is why I think he'll get the cup games. Obviously, we have view to becoming number 1 in the future.
Yeah, no, I understand what you're saying. San Fran comes in, they're just snobbery about some of her fans, not big money, we write them off. And to be fair, I'm probably guilty of that a wee bit in terms of signings and where they come from, what leagues they come from, and the transfer fees we pay for them. But Gav, James mentioned the plan. And let's talk about something that looks good on paper, that looks good from the recruitment team and the management team looking into the future for the goalkeeping position. So what we've done essentially is sign an experienced guy with Kasper Schmeichel. We've brought in Sinisalo to be backup. Again, he's played for Finland, I think 3 or 4 caps. He played against Scotland. I've seen the clips, some great saves. He was in a high save percentage for Exeter and same for Schmeichel and Anderlecht. So, and then added to that, I think Sinisalo was said that Schmeichel's one of his idols. So again, it could be a match made in heaven. But looking into the future, what this could open up, Segrist apparently is a way to wrap up Bucharest with Lennon. Random, I know, but who cares really? Get him out of the club. So we look at the goalkeeping position going into this season. You have Kasper, you have Sinisalo, who's got Scott Bain, and then the understudies would be Toby, Oluwami, and Josh Clark, who spent 6 months at Ayr and by all accounts done really well under Scott Brown. Do you think this sort of forward planning is a good thing? Because like James said, if we only sign Kasper Schmeichel, we'd be kicking that can further down the road, and at the same position next year, the same junction, who we're going to bring in, and it'll be the same old. Whereas it looks like now we've got a plan in place, and then for me anyway, that bodes well looking into next season and the future of Sinisalo stays and impresses Stevie Woods and the coaching department. So let's talk about a good thing. The planning looks decent on paper, doesn't it, Gavin?
On paper, it looks excellent. It's actually got people excited. I'm surprised that I've not heard more than what I have already about Sinisalo. I was reading about it. Apparently, he is 1.9 meters tall, which I hate short goalkeepers. So, but in saying that, Rab Douglas was a really tall goalkeeper, but whenever it comes to crosses, it kind of like seemed to shrink. On paper, it looks great, but I think that we've kind of bought ourselves time with Sinisalo by the fact that we've brought in Schmeichel. Now, Schmeichel might not just be here for 12 months. Schmeichel might be here for 2 years. We might renew, as I've said already. And if he's good enough to merit and he wants to renew his contract with us, then I'm on board with that. A player that we love to hate was Alan McGregor, and for a long period he had an Indian summer. Alan McGregor, he was a player who always kind of came up well against us, and he retired by the age of 40 or whatever. So look, that it's natural for goalkeepers to keep doing well late into their 30s. The thing with Sinisalo, I'm taking it with a pinch of salt. As I said, if he's going to be our number one in the next year or the next 2 years, how is his future best served? Is it on the bench, being mentored by Schmeichel? It sounds like a bit of a patronising thing.
It could be cup games. He could be getting the cup games.
Watch me do this. Watch me do that. That sounds fucking weird. I think for a young goalkeeper, the best way for you to develop and get experience is by playing senior football and getting out there on loan, especially at that age. He's not going to develop watching Hart dive about from the bench. So I find it a bit intriguing, but look, it might actually be that might be the future. He might be our number one. Who am I to say no to that? I've just got a wee bit of doubt on that. I'm a wee bit sceptical. But on paper, it looks a very, very forward, proactive plan of action there. But whether it comes to fruition, who knows? But the safe thing is we've bought ourselves a bit of time. If in 12 months he doesn't look like he's going to be good enough, then we can see that coming. We can forecast that and buy a replacement, or we can perhaps renew the contract with Schmeichel.
Yeah, again, it looks good on paper. A lot of variables that, like you said, Gav, will he perform in training? And I think that it is a bit counterproductive. I get what you're saying. In terms of a keeper who played all the games last season, James for Exeter, he's going to be on the bench for the majority of the games this season. Will that stunt his growth? Will that stunt his potential? We've seen this before with young players in the past, and once they have a good kind of run and then they're put back on the bench or not getting into the first team, then it doesn't really go well in terms of their actual career kind of trajectory at the big clubs. And I just hope that doesn't happen in terms of that. With Sinisalo, the planning is great, but it begs the question as well, who's making these decisions behind the scenes? Because like Gav said, with no head of recruitment, with no lead chief scout, as it seems at the moment, Tosh McKinley and about 4 or 5 laptops with nobody at them is the only thing in the recruitment team at the moment. But you mentioned the plan, and I have to agree with you. Let's not be negative the whole podcast, because it's great we've signed 2 goalkeepers and have that addressed and look forward to the future is a good thing in general.
Aye, absolutely. In terms of the recruitment thing, I think the only answer currently can be it's Brendan Rodgers. Again, if some have said on here afore, we won a watch with Ange in the terms of he was doing everything, and we were looking for a director of football prior to Ange, say before a game with the Howe deal collapsing and everything like that. So that can't be a model. That isn't a model to move forward with, but it just seems to be what we're dealing with now, that the manager seems to be spinning plates or the gaff. But as I say with the goalkeepers, I'm happy in terms of the planning. Look, I get what you're saying in terms of stunting his growth and all that, but he's a goalkeeper. It is slightly different for goalkeepers. I mean, how many kind of goalkeepers in their early 20s are playing first team football in the Champions League anyway? There can't be many. So
Donnarumma, David De Gea, Casillas.
We could have took De Gea in a free. There we go. We'll take De Gea in a free. But like, you know what I mean. Like I think Donnarumma is a bit of a day, to be honest. But by and large, they're world class talents. But like, the last goalkeeper Celtic would have signed at that age would have probably have been Fraser Forster. I'd be right in saying.
Yeah.
In terms of coming in as a young goalkeeper, like Scott Bain, Siegrist, I'm sure they're a bit older, but realistically, they were never going to be number one regardless. But no, for us to spend money on a goalkeeper at that age, having come in, was it League One or League Two, whatever Exeter were in. We must see something in him, and look, I'm happy enough with it. As I say, look, there was people saying that we needed to sign 2 goalkeepers, so we've got a highly rated young second choice goalkeeper who could go on to be first pick. If we signed I don't want to say Roos because you're going to think I'm saying it because you've mentioned them before, but if we signed somebody like that, or somebody for this league that I genuinely can't think of any other goalkeeper in the league now, but had we signed somebody like that, realistically, if they came in, they were going to be permanently number 2. I would have never have envisaged a path for them to become number 1, barring injury for a spell. But nah, I'm happy enough. As I say, both of them together makes perfect sense to me. If it was only one and no the other, either way, then I wouldn't be happy with it. But nah, I'm cool with it.
Yeah, and again, I'm probably of that thinking at the moment. Is that I'm probably of that thinking at the moment. Now, obviously settling down and rehashing the thoughts, like Gav said, take time to think. I'm very an emotional kind of guy when it comes to these things. And I did see an article that. I did see an article. It's went over my head. Did I do something? I did see an article. Oh, right. I did. I didn't even read it. That's quite funny. But I did see an article previously about Sinisalo that Bayern Munich and all were tracking him. Obviously, you take them things at face value, but again, he's a keeper who's been touted around Europe, and we've got him. And let's hope him and Schmeichel work out. And the other players that we seem to be chasing their tails for at the moment, Gav, is Paulo Bernardo and Idah. Now, every day there's a different rumour in the Twitter sphere. I mean, it was yesterday. Fee agreed with Bernardo. He was leaving Portugal to join up with Celtic in the USA, but then pictures of him training with Benfica come out 2 or 3 hours later. So you don't know what's happening. The Idah thing is it is turned into a saga now because it's been on for this amount of time, and there was that breaking news. Remember at the beginning, I think it was 2 weeks ago, that we were going to sign him and all this was happening now, and it hasn't happened. Their manager, and rightly so, wants to take a look at him, and he started their first pre-season game, albeit for 30 minutes, but again, it's fitness and stuff like that. Where do you stand on them players, Gav? And particularly Idah. I think Bernardo will go over the line, but particularly this whole scenario with Idah at this precise moment.
Right, okay. Well, Idah fills a gap in our attacking strategy. There's been plenty of games last season where Kyogo's performances were difficult to gauge. It wasn't the fact that he was so much off form, but we had a big change in style. We had a change in manager. We lost about one of our main suppliers from the wide and Jota. So Kyogo wasn't the player that we were used to last season, and we needed a solution, as James down below was rightly screaming for. And Ross in the podcast was talking about personnel. He wasn't saying it was. He was going for personnel. That was his thing. And Idah kind of filled that void. And I feel that Idah was particularly good away from home. At Parkhead, there was times when Idah looked a very, very ordinary, clueless player running about like headless chicken, which, you know, there have been days where any Celtic striker has looked like that. But Idah really excelled away from home. Whenever we had physical teams confronting us and we were finding it difficult to play out from our passing game from the back, we could go over the top. Idah could hold it up well. He could even turn a player and he could just power on. I think the Kilmarnock game was it was a brilliant game for Kilmarnock for Idah. That was in the last 6 games of the league. Idah was like a man possessed. And I actually said that I don't think even Giakoumakis could level that particular performance that Idah put in that night. Idah was brilliant that night. The way that he finished, that he set up, that he led the line, fantastic. Kyogo cannot do that. So there is games domestically where we need that type of player. Kyogo cannot do that. So we need to fill that void. Adam Idah can do that. The advantage is Adam Idah's already done it for half a season. He's got his confidence up. He knows the league. He knows Brendan Rodgers. So, and he knows the players. So it's a kind of a safe transfer. The complication is that Norwich don't want to sell. Now, does that mean that they don't want to sell, period? Or that they'll sell if the price is right? Because every player has got a price. So we've been talking about it in the group chat, or more accurately, you guys have been talking about it in the group chat. I've been trying to stay out of it because if you get invested in it, then you're all in, you know. But every player has got a price. So, and people are saying, well, Celtic have got the money. Why don't you just pay that little bit extra? But is that not an emotional decision from a fan's point of view? If you're a money man at Celtic, if it's your job to watch the purse strings and you've managed to kind of see the balance sheet keep up and up and up, you'll be looking at it to say, well, why should we be paying over the odds for this player? There will be other players out there who can do the job of Adam Idah. Now, I can't name you any of them because I'm not a football fanatic. I love football, but I'm not. I don't have a knowledge like an encyclopedia that could tell you these names.
Well,
better
I mean,
than
that's
Adam Idah.
debatable.
I don't do Football Manager, where that's actually kind of a useful source of information these days, you know, for naming players. There will be players out there who can do what Adam Idah does. Maybe not as well, but they've got other things that they can bring to the table. Even domestically, Majowski, who James trumpets about every day, every week. And not wrongly. But there are alternatives to Adam Idah. So the question is, what's your maximum price for Adam Idah? Because if Norwich say 11 million, not a fucking chance. Some Celtic fans will say 6.5, 9 million at tops. But how far are Norwich? Norwich know we've got money. Norwich know that we want him. They hold all the cards. Eventually, James, at one point, we have to say, we can't drag this out for the entire summer. We need to act like a proper club and say, well, fuck yous, we'll move on, you know?
Mate, I'm pretty similar. But I kind of agree and disagree with you at certain points as well. But the rumours, what was it, 9 million is the rumours. Is Adam Idah worth 9 million? I personally don't think so. Or 6 million, I'd take your horn off for.
We'll get 6, we'll get 7. Does MD go higher than 7? MD in the group chat go higher than 7? I've got 7 here.
I thought it was 9. I seen 9 earlier. He definitely isn't worth 9 million. But like you're saying, it gets to the point where the season ended at the end of May. We're now more than halfway through July, and there seems to have been very little, if any, movement on the deal. Partly your fault for obviously not agreeing a fee in the January. But if Adam Idah is our number one target, which it appears to be, if we're haggling our 1 million or 2 million, in Norwich seem to be pretty steadfast in the sense that they've set their price and that's what they want. See if that is your number one target and we don't have a director of football and yada, yada, yada. It's the manager that is making the decision. Just put the money down and pay for him. Was O worth 4.5 million? Absolutely not. We turned a profit and O wasn't worth 4.5 million. Adam Idah, in my opinion, isn't worth 9. But if that is your number one target, just put the money down. If that's who the manager wants and that's the asking price, just do it. Just do it.
So James, I guess the crux of my question is, what is, like you're saying, if we're that desperate, go that little bit more. But what is your ceiling? What is your maximum? You're like, no, you're taking the piss now.
But my point, well, 9 million for me, well, that was what I read. If it was 6 million or whatever, then I go for it. Personally, if it was 9 million, I don't think he's worth 9 million. Well, you're saying every day. I think it's every half an hour or every 40 minutes I mention Majowski, to be honest. But we haven't actually really been linked with him. It's just us kind of mentioning that obviously he's there, he's available, he seems to be away. I know he's been linked to a move to Bologna as well. But look, the only striker, certainly off the top of my head, that I can think of that we've been linked with is Adam Idah. he's been here, he's won us the Scottish Cup, he had a massive hand in winning us the league. What you're saying about the games at Parkhead, absolutely, I take that on board. But at the same time, I sat home and away and watched Kyogo be absolutely anonymous until he gets subbed off. So does that mean Kyogo isn't worth 6, 7, 8, 9 million? We've got Adam Idah's come in. I would think it's probably very, very fair to have an argument that Adam Idah outperformed Kyogo in the period that they were both here. And I think it was McGinty was saying earlier that you're paying potentially £9 million for a backup striker. I really don't see it that way. I think at best it'll be 50-50, but I could actually see Idah, if he signed, being Rodgers' number one striker. I think, obviously, in certain games he favoured them last year, but I think also part of that was the fact that it was just a straight up loan. We didn't have any agreement in place. I think that would have played into it as well. But look, basically, I personally don't think he's worth 9 million, but we've had essentially 2 months worth of we're in discussions, they're lowering the fee, the manager wants to see him. It gets to the point where either put up and shut up and sign him, or walk away and sign Miofsky or whoever else it is we're looking at. This dragging it on and dragging it on and dragging on, it's not getting us anywhere. Norwich seem pretty resilient in their valuation of him. So if we don't want to meet that valuation, then that's fine. Just walk away and focus elsewhere. It just feels as if we're essentially stalling for time, and we really shouldn't be. We don't need to be. And also the thing they had done the other day with the airplane thing. Oh Jesus, man! What are you doing?
Was that a cock teasing move?
Mate. You know my opinions on shit like that. When I said in the group chat the other night, but I just hate shit like that. And like he's doing it. Like, who's that getting on side? I know it's an absolutely nothing thing, but somebody said that put them in mind I can't wear, and that's probably pretty fair. But no, that was a bit of a dick move. But look, as I say, either put up or shut up. That's the point I'm at. Put the money down for him or walk away and sign somebody else is where I'm at with him just now.
Well, Stephen, you asked the question. We never got into Paulo Bernardo, but we've spoken about Adam Idah. We want him, but every man has got a price. And if it gets too high, then you're taking the piss.
Oh, 1,000,000%. I think we're taking the piss, even talking about £6 to £7 million for Alameda, in my opinion. He was valued at 3.5 before he came on loan, because there was a loan day option to buy it. I think it was a German club, can't quite remember the name, but it fell through. Don't understand what logic Celtic had not to include an option to buy in this deal, like they have with Bernardo, Carter Vickers and Jota. So right away they're giving Norwich that they have the leverage, and if he had a great end of season, then they could put that price up, and quite evidently they have. And this whole back and forth, we're talking to him, he's signing, he's on his way to Glasgow, private jet planes, and like what James said, see when players start doing all that kind of playing emojis and timers and stuff, it's like Jack and Mackett's Cantwell type shit. Just stop that. Just be professional at the club you're at, and leave a good impression, and join the club with the best wishes of your former team as well. I don't like that. It's unprofessional, in my opinion. It's a good laugh, don't get me wrong, you can have a laugh about it, but in a professional environment, that is a bit like, right, come on, that's not getting ahead. We've seen the trouble Thiago Home got in with Rodgers last year, putting up cryptic Instagram posts from the Glasgow Derby game, I think it was, as well. So he doesn't like it. So I don't understand why Adam is doing it. And he quite obviously knew he was going to pre-season training and he was going to play a football match for Norwich at that time. So who's he rubbing up here? Who's he trying to send a message to? Certainly wasn't the Celtic fans, but at the end of the day, so I don't know. But look, this is my gripe. We're spending so much time and energy trying to get this one deal over the line. We're probably missing out on 5 or 6 or 7 other potential targets just to get Adam Idah in the door. And look, I'm not saying we shouldn't sign him. I would like him at the club, 100%. But if we're going to go another 2 to 3 weeks just saying we're having internal chats and discussions, then just sack it off, leave it be, move on to somebody else. I think there's a million other strikers who are just as good, if not better, than Adam Idah, and that's the same with Kyogo as well. I think we need to be looking at improving all departments throughout the football club at the moment. And if we're going to turn the chat to Paulo Bernardo, Gav, I mean, you look at that. again, all the Portuguese outlets are reporting that a fee of £3.5 million with add-ons has been agreed. It looks like he is on his way. That's one deal I do think will happen quite soon. I think he'll be in America probably before the Chelsea game. I think that's next week, the last one we're having, that pre-season trip. I think he'll be there. What do you think about him? I mean, do you think he is the direct replacement for O'Reilly if he leaves? Do you think that's where Celtic are going with that?
No, he's not the direct replacement for O'Reilly. I know that he's the captain for the Portuguese under-21s, probably because he's the oldest in the group. He's 23 years old, I believe. Look, Bernardo is a capable player, but last season whenever Hatate came back into the fold, he went right in front of Bernardo in the midfield, and it was McGregor, O'Reilly, and Hatate, and Bernardo had to go back on the fringes. Bernardo has got something. I like the physicality of the guy. He's tall, he's rangy, he's got that kind of same gait as O'Reilly. Kind of wears his socks like halfway up his legs, kind of like O'Reilly as well. But
So
they're not the same type of player. That's nice. What other fashion traits do you have, Stephen? Tell us more. Tell me more, please.
Socks and sandals, mate. They can't go wrong. But anyway, forget about that.
Good. Capital punishment in some Arab countries, from what I've heard. So watch out. Bernardo's kind of flattered to deceive since he joined Celtic. I think we believe that there is potential, but that potential needs to be nurtured. He needs to show us. He needs to demand a jersey. He needs to really put himself out there to show that he is a Celtic midfielder who deserves to be on the starting lineup every week. He never showed that last season. He flattered to deceive. So I think it'll be more of the same next season, probably a bit better. But he'll add competition. We need competition. But if O'Reilly leaves, we need to buy we definitely need to buy another player. And I would be disappointed if O'Reilly left and we bring in Bernardo and buy another project player.
Oh, fuck.
What I'm happy about, I don't want to deviate off topic, but the one thing I'm kind of glad about so far this summer, the fact that we've only signed 2 goalkeepers, I'm glad at the fact that we've not brought in, I don't want to use the word dross because that's disrespectful, because every now and again you're going to bring in a player who you're thinking, oh, another project, but that one project player every 1 or 2 years might bring you 25 million. So I'm glad the fact that we've not been forcing players on Rodgers this summer. I know that we're really, really close to losing our temper. We're really, really close to losing our patience.
No way.
But you can't accuse the board of forcing a load of players onto Rodgers, because I think this window, we need quality over quantity. I know we've heard that, but so far you can't accuse us of deviating from that. We're looking for quality. If we don't get quality, then we're not forcing any project players on Rodgers. So I'm keeping a bit of faith in that, and I think that Rodgers has earned a bit of gravitas. If he never had any already last season, he's certainly earned it now, winning the league, winning the double from what he had last season.
Well, Rodgers did say that he could have signed 9 players by now, so the board are still putting players to him. So it seems, but he is rejecting them opportunities and advances, which is good. I do agree. If Rodgers has the right frame of mind to bring in the right quality, and he's going to hold out for it, I hope the board do back him in that advancer, James. And you're laughing because I think you're off the same mindset as me. We've heard them words before: quality, and it's like, is that going to happen?
And also, see if the board have put 9 players to Rodgers and he said no. Well, who's in charge of picking the 9 players then? Do you know what I mean? It doesn't bode well, does it, if you look at it for that aspect? But no, look, the Paulo Bernardo thing, I'm honestly no arsed. If he signs, he signs. If he doesn't sign, he doesn't. I'm no really fussed either way. I don't think he's a bad player. I just don't think he's particularly good. If he signs, and yes, sorry, Giff.
How better do you think Bernardo is to home, for example?
I don't think you can judge it. I don't think you can judge it.
If I'm being honest, if I was ranking them, I would put Bernardo above Home, but that's purely just because we've seen Mary Bernardo. Aye, exactly. And look, as I say, I'm no digging Bernardo. I'm not saying he's bad. I just think he just kind of drifted through a lot of games. I think the cup finals a wee bit of kind of recency bias that's maybe stuck in our heads for his run, and obviously eventually setting up the goal for Idah in the cup final. But prior to that, as I said 13 times before, his wee spell either side of New Year. But barring that, he was pretty average. I said at points last season I thought he would be O'Reilly's replacement, and I still stand by that. Look, our midfielders, and you could probably get through them all, to be honest, including McGregor. We don't have all our midfielders are kind of the same type of player, if that makes sense. We don't have like an out and out hoarding midfielder, and we don't have like an out and out kind of attacking midfielder, like a number 10. So I just think he will be. I don't see if we do sign another player, then for me in the midfield it has to be an out and out hoarding midfielder. But we've said that for umpteen years now, and it hasn't really happened. So I think in terms of the midfield, we'll sign Bernardo, and that'll probably be it.
We'll sign Bernardo and have our fingers crossed that we don't sell O'Reilly, but we'll come on to the O'Reilly chat shortly. Galvin, one position James mentioned there was an out and out holding midfielder, and there was a lot of hope for pre-season for Bosun Lawal, albeit he had a fantastic season down at Fleetwood, was in their team of the year, I think, as well, which is a great achievement. And in terms of scouting analysis, all the scout reports on Twitter look great about him. But Rodgers has come out and said him and Odin, Thiago Home, in this instance, have to do better, perform better without the ball, run harder, more dedication, more work ethic in that team. And the Queen's Park game that I saw, the 6-4 game, there was parts of it where I thought Bosun Lawal struggled with the pace. Like, he really did. He was labouring quite a lot. Good on the ball, don't get me wrong, very strong, athletic when he has the ball to his feet, but looked to be chasing the game when the game was going in behind him. That was a worrying sign for myself, and that's long after that Rodgers came out with these comments. So what do you think about Rodgers at the moment in pre-season, the way he's talking even about Daniel Kelly, all aimed towards the younger players, so to speak, but it's good to see that kind of iron fist coming back again, what we were used to seeing with Rodgers the first time, cutthroat, wasn't afraid to make a hard choice, and these young players have had the gauntlet through down them quite early on in pre-season.
Well, to hold my hands up, I've not watched the first 2 games that Celtic have played pre-season, and I'm not even going to apologise for that. I don't give a shit. Even in America, I'm actually scared to watch Celtic against the other teams. Until when I was younger, I would really like, I'd definitely watch those games, but they're glorified training games. And until we actually bring in new blood, until then, even then, I've got like a tepid interest in it. So I've not watched the games that you're talking about, but Bosun Lawal, in terms of Brendan Rodgers coming out and being very, very vocal in his thoughts. So he said, you might be good enough for some clubs, but at Celtic, you need to try far, far harder. It's okay having like a good touch, being able to pass, but off the ball, you need to be doing so much work. You need to constantly pressing the opposition, stretching the team, making space for yourself, being available for the ball. And it's a very, very high standard at Celtic. I think sometimes I'm not trying to patronise anybody here, you guys or the people in the group, but I think sometimes you need to remind yourself sometimes how difficult it is to be a Celtic player. You might be able to do it in England, but whenever you come up to Scotland, it takes people by surprise. We've got very, very high standards, and it's because of the way that games play out in Scotland, particularly. Bosun Lawal and the boy Odin Home, the guys have got talent. I think Lawal has got more physicality than Home. I think Home has got more technicality than Lawal. But both players can offer different things. And it's a little bit disappointing, the fact that Odin Holm needs reminding of that after 1 year of being on the periphery at Celtic. He's been very much in the periphery. I think a few people, including myself, get a little bit excited by his YouTube clips whenever he signed for Celtic. We had high hopes for him, but he barely got a sniff in. Obviously had the red card in the Champions League. That it happens. It happens to the best of players. You know, you make a mistake at a young age, whatever. No judgments there. But I would think that it's a bigger disappointment to Odin Holm than Lowell. I think Odin Holm might be a little bit older, and Odin Holm was given a lot of responsibility at his previous club, Vålerenga, I think it was, in the Norwegian League. For that type of position he was playing, he was picking the ball up from his defence, and he was beating players. He was like shimmying past players and dribbling on, and then distributing it in the final third. But what worked in the Norwegian League is not going to work with Celtic in the Scottish League. So it's a bit of a disappointment that Brendan Rodgers had to highlight that, to reinforce that to him, the standards that you need to be at Celtic. But I'm glad that Brendan Rodgers feels honest enough to do that. And if he wants to do it in the media, then fair enough. It lets us know where he is at, where the players are at. It stops us from bickering amongst ourselves to say, why are you not playing home? Why are you not playing Boston Lawal? And then we're going to be talking about fucking Lennoxtown and the merits of Lennoxtown, about bringing players through like Boston Lawal. I know that Lawal was from Watford. He was an academy graduate. But if we're going to bring him, like 2 seasons ago, we had him, and then we bring him through and he's not getting a game, we're going to be blaming infrastructure at Celtic Park. But if Brendan Rodgers is going to be transparent enough to criticise people, it lets us know exactly where we stand, and it gives us a bit of faith that Rodgers is communicating to the fans. So I probably rambled, but there we go.
No. And when you were on that thing about that Lennoxtown and the merits of it, all that came to my head was the pathway that we spoke about on this podcast the last couple of weeks, the pathway development manager and Darren O'Day. But, you know, that could improve. And I do agree with the points you're saying, and I do find it refreshing, James, that Brendan Rodgers is being transparent with the fans about these young prospects. That's all we asked for the seasons. We didn't get it last season for whatever reason. The previous seasons we didn't get it either. And just to know the kind of the progress that the Wild and Thiago Holm are making, and it's quite disappointing, like Gavin said, that Thiago Holm hasn't kind of wound his neck in and got stuck in a training and showed what he's about. Because at Vålerenga, I think he was their captain at some point and over 100 appearances before he was 20 in the Norwegian top tier. And some would argue that league is better than the SPFL all round, including the member clubs and that. But yeah, it's a good thing, and it kind of not shuts me up about the youth coming through, but it gives me a better understanding of where they're at, because you can't sit back. You can ask questions. Why is Daniel Kelly not getting more game time? Why did Rocco Vada think he deserved more? Why did Bosun Lawal think he was going to walk into the midfield? I'm not saying he did, but I'm just saying this is what you could be thinking during pre-season. And to have Rodgers coming out and effectively saying they're not good enough at this stage tells us as supporters that he's right in his decision to not play these guys week in, week out.
I don't really think I can add anything to what you said, to be honest. It's refreshing. He's no kind of digging them out. If anything, the way I took it is he's laying a challenge down to them. He's essentially saying, look, we rate you, we think you're good football players, but you just need to kind of show that all the time, really, and maybe work a wee bit harder. And if they take it the right way, then there's every chance they could kick on and hopefully improve. I don't imagine they'll sulk on it or anything like that, because there wasn't really anything that he said that was wrong. As you say, it was refreshing. It was good to hear, and it answers a lot of questions that we had about certain players last season as well.
Right, no, 100%. And Gav, you anything to add before we move on?
No. Just what James said. That it's good that Rodgers is being honest in his communication. I was actually going to say, Stephen, obviously, because we thought that Willie would be on tonight to host. So you've stepped in like a hero that you are for this podcast. And I know that it's difficult to come up with topics so late in the day, which I hate. I'm like a diva. Like, give me 24 hours, I will give topics. But if you give me 2 hours, you can fuck off. So I appreciate that you've stepped up to the plate, but I thought I wanted to kind of alleviate the pressure on you. Now, there was this kind of thing that I've been seeing on YouTube. I've been seeing like interviewers talk to footballers, and interviewers talk to boxers as well. And it's like, who's your best? And then they come up against another one, and they need to like who stays on top, and then they keep throwing out names. So I'll put you in the hot seat, Stephen, for this one. So it's just a quick fire thing. And we're going to talk about, maybe if it's good, we can do it again, but it's going to be about Celtic centre forwards. Now, I have taken out the key Henrik Larsson because he's always going to be your final one. And I've tried to make the list players roughly in your lifetime. So I know that you do struggle with people in the 90s and the early 90s.
He's a dick. He's a dick. You're such a dick. I swear to fucking. But okay, go ahead. Go on.
I'm extremely honest. Extremely honest. All right, okay. So we're going to start off with Scott McDonald or Harold Bratback.
Scott McDonald.
Scott McDonald or Magic Zurawski.
Scott McDonald.
Scott McDonald or Pierre Van Hooijdonk.
Scott McDonald.
Scott McDonald or Lee Griffiths.
Lee Griffiths.
Lee Griffiths or Tommy Johnson.
Lee Griffiths.
Lee Griffiths or Jan Vennegoor Hesselink.
Jan Vennegoor Hesselink.
Jan Vennegoor Hesselink or George Cadet.
Jan Vennegoor Hesselink.
Jan Vennegoor Hesselink or Moussa Dembele.
Moussa Dembele.
Moussa Dembele or John Hartson.
Moussa Dembele.
Moussa Dembele or Gary Hooper.
Moussa Dembele.
Moussa Dembele or Kyogo Furuhashi.
Fuck. What would you say, James?
I would have probably said John Hartson. I'd probably lean towards Dembele.
Yeah, Dembele.
Moussa Dembele or Marco Antoine Fortuny.
Oh, do you know, I actually really like Marc-Antoine Fortuny, but I have to go Moussa Dembele, so there you go.
Moussa Dembele or Mark Viduka.
Moussa Dembele.
Mark Viduka, sorry. Moussa Dembele or Giorgio Samaras.
Oh, shit. Samaras.
Okay. Giorgio Samaras or Robbie Keane.
Giorgio Samaras.
Giorgio Samaras or Anthony Stokes.
Giorgio Samaras.
Giorgio Samaras or Odsonne Edouard.
Odsonne Edouard.
Okay, Odsonne Edouard or Chris Sutton.
Chris Sutton.
Chris Sutton or Henri Camara.
Chris Sutton.
I'm mixing it up. Keeping you on your toes.
Chris Sutton.
Chris Sutton or Georgios Giacomakis.
Chris Sutton.
And Chris Sutton or Craig Bellamy.
Chris Sutton.
And there we go. Chris Sutton wins the King of the Ring, shall we say?
Can I just caveat one thing, right? You asked me about Tommy Johnson, Bratback, and Pierre Van Hooijdonk, right? The reason I picked the other player was I never witnessed them play games live or anything, so I was just going purely of who I've seen in a Celtic shirt over my lifetime. So people were laughing and sniggering and stuff. So that's why I chose the other striker, because there was no point in me picking Van Hooijdonk or Harold Bratback, even though I know the stories, I've seen clips, but I was going merely off who I seen as a striker for Celtic.
Stephen, don't let people take the piss out of your lack of...
Mate, you laughed. You laughed every single time. Don't even say that. You laughed every single time.
Well, it's difficult. I'm only human. Okay. So Chris Sutton wins it. That's good. Was that a good feature? Did you enjoy that? Was that nice?
I enjoyed it. Yeah, it was different. But you didn't laugh at me a lot. So I'll take it.
Stephen, look, you've got a lot of kudos in this podcast. Okay, So don't you worry about that. Don't you worry about people taking a piss at you. Does everyone think that Chris Sutton would be the heavyweight out of everybody? So I would probably just say like the heavyweights for me would be Van Hooijdonk, Cadet. Like don't write off Cadet. Cadet was a good player. Van Hooijdonk.
I've never seen him play.
No, I'm not writing you off, Stephen. But I would say that the best players on that list would be Van Hooijdonk, Cadet, Dembele, Hartson, Kyogo, Viduka. Viduka was one hell of a player. Robbie Keane for me is right up there. Like, whether you want to say, oh, it's about him as a player overall or him as a Celtic player, you can argue about that. Edward, Chris Sutton, Bellamy. Bellamy was fucking unbelievable on his day. A lot of good players there. But each to their own, everybody's got their opinion, and that's why we love football, isn't it? James, would you have went for one particular player?
No, mate, I think I was basing it on their time at Celtic, and through all the names you've mentioned, top of my list would be Chris Sutton. So I agree with it.
How good is Chris Sutton in a Celtic team without Henrik Larsson, though?
Larsson.
I know. I said that, didn't
Larson.
Larsson.
Mate, you could have played him fucking in goals and he would have probably done a job. I'm surprised we didn't see that at certain points, obviously when playing centre half as well. But nah, I think he would have still been good. Really good.
That is indeed some good hash, Paul. You don't lose your rolling skills whenever you get to my age. One final thing, Stephen. So thank you for that wee kind of segue. One final thing I was going to say is you might need to think about it, but see, whenever people say, "No, I'm not," you're fearing the worst. You think I'm always going to like
go for it.
No, it's not to you. It's just to everybody. Okay. You know, you hear that question like on like a desert island whenever they say, "Who would be your top 3 dinner guests?" So I was going to ask the question: who would be your top 3 Celtic dinner guests?
Oh,
I've thought about it. So if you want, I can tell you who I would choose. So if you're going to have dinner,
you pick yours first. You pick yours first.
Historic Celtic legends. I've thought about it, obviously. So I can tell you who I would choose. And I would just listen and just drink away and just listen to what I've got to say and ask a few questions here and there. But I think it would be the most intriguing evening ever, just hearing Celtic legends talk about their experiences, their history, their thoughts on Celtic today, and their thoughts on Celtic back then. I think the most recent would be Tommy Burns, because, well, the guy was Celtic. He grew up in the Calton, so close to Celtic. He played for Celtic, captained Celtic, he managed Celtic. He got fired from Celtic. He came back. He worked in the coaching staff with the unders. The guy lived and breathed it, and the guy was an honest man. I think Tommy Burns, and the way that he would talk, the people that I've known who actually knew Tommy Burns, they held him in such high esteem. I think Tommy Burns would have to be at that seat, at that dinner table. If I'm going back a little bit further, I would choose Bertie Auld, because he was a fantastic storyteller. And the other thing was that he played for the Lisbon Lions, so he captures that particular period in Celtic's greatest history, for Celtic's greatest team. And he'd be able to tell stories about all the legends that he played with. He'd be able to tell you stories about Jinky Johnson, about Jock Stein, about the camaraderie in the 11, talking about going out to away games in Europe. So I'd choose Bertie Auld. And going further back than that, I would choose Willie Maley, because Willie Maley was the manager for Celtic for decades, and he'd be able to kind of bridge a time period. You'd be able to get his thoughts on how Celtic evolved now, how football have evolved now, and his experiences of Celtic whenever they were a club before they actually went professional. And he'd be able to explain the rivalry between us and Rangers and how that developed, and how the kind of maybe the toxicity between us developed as well, with the religious divide as well, and the political aspect of being an Irish Catholic football club in Scotland back then. So I would go for Willie Maley, Bertie Auld, and Tommy Burns, and I think that bridges eras in Celtic's timeline. Stephen?
Oh, I mean, great lineup. You chose. I would probably throw in mine Bertie Auld. I do agree. I think for banter, for stories, for a drinking session, for history, for talking about the team he was in, talking about Jock Sting, talking about Jimmy Johnson. I think you would get some fantastic stories off him. We've all seen it in the past before when he's done work for Celtic TV and the like. So definitely Bertie Auld would be in. I would probably lean towards someone like Chris Sutton as well, just merely because that, again, I'm coming from this. That's like, who can I have a piss up with and get steaming with and have a laugh with and just drink the night away and have a good time. Chris Sutton, anything I've seen him do, anything I've seen him be a part of, he's knowledgeable, he's funny, he's witty, and also again he speaks well about Celtic and his time there, and he's also very real. He'll give it to you straight and tell you the truth. Another player, so Chris Sutton, Bertie Auld. There's a million players I'm forgetting, Gav. So I'm just ones that are popping into my head right now. I would probably err towards someone like Cal McGregor, to someone who's there now, someone who's, I mean, the time period from 2013, 2014, when he first broke through, the success we've had since then, the managers he's worked under, Postecoglou, Ronnie Daly, Brendan Rodgers twice, Neil Lennon 50 times. So I mean, so that would be interesting to me. I'd like to learn about the inner workings of the club, but also like to talk to Dermot Desmond. I'd love to pick his brains about. I mean, that video you shared today, I sat with my youngest in my arms. She was sleeping, and I just watched it. The Celtic Exchange was interviewing David Lowe, who was involved in the whole kind of takeover with Fergus McCann in the 90s when Celtic were in dire straits, and just learning about the ownership model, about the share issues, about the different structures and things. I'd like to pick his brains about that and see what his actual kind of aim is for the club long term. There's a lot of players Gav would like to have dinner with, a lot of players, but I'll put it down to three: Chris Sutton, Bertie Auld, and Cal McGregor as of now.
Excellent, good choices. James?
I've went for Tommy Burns as well. I went Henrik Larsson, and then my last one was Jacinta.
Is that for after your dinner?
No, well, I'd probably talk to Tommy Burns and Jacinta about FITBA, and then probably still spend the full night staring at Henrik anyway. So, in all seriousness, but Larsson, Tommy Burns, I was between two, Scott Brown or Ange. I'd go Scott Brown. Ange, I could listen to talk about just FITBA in general. He probably wasn't here long enough to get a seat at the table. Henrik Larsson, Tommy Burns, and Scott Brown.
See, the one thing with Henrik Larsson is whenever you have his interviews, and I'm not trying to diss your choice, Henrik Larsson's interviews, he always seems very kind of, he keeps it to the point. He doesn't elaborate. I think part of that, you would say, well, that's media training, because why would you wear your heart on your sleeve for an interview? So although I've always found Henrik Larsson interviews very, very uninspiring and boring, although at one point, whenever we get beat by the Rotten Mob, he said that we played shit at one point. I remember him saying that in an interview, but I think he always underplayed it in interviews, and that's just because of how the media is. So it's difficult to judge a player from their interviews, but I would imagine if you knew Henrik Larsson behind the scenes, it would certainly open up and you would find out his true personality.
I must admit, I don't know if it was actually yourself. It was at the thing at the Hydro where was that an evening where was Henrik Larsson, Chris Sutton, Martin O'Neill. I ended up pretty much the full Seville team. But exactly what you're saying, I always pictured Martin O'Neill as being kind of quite straight laced, not having really any patter, to be honest. And that night he just sat, and I think he had like a bottle of wine in him, and his patter was excellent. He was tearing into every day, and he was having a laugh with the crowd and everything, and it genuinely kind of surprised me. Like you're saying, like, I know he wasn't shy or anything like that in interviews, but he did seem really kind of quite straight laced. And obviously Henrik Larsson, the stuff, I don't think he'd get much chance to talk, to be honest. I'd just be asking him questions all the time anyway. Obviously, I'm sure it was all heroes growing up. We're all at that age, so he's definitely he's probably first seat at the table for me. He's sitting at the top of the table.
And by the way, Martin O'Neill, like whenever you listen to TalkSport, and Simon Jordan, who is quite would you use the word loquacious? You know, he's got a good grasp of the English language, and he's very, very talkative, and he's very, very assertive. Even though if he's talking pish, he can still kind of steamroller people with his opinions. But Martin O'Neill more than holds his own. Like, if you think about when Graham Souness is with Graham Souness, Jim White, and Simon Jordan can make Graham Souness look like a child, you know. But Martin O'Neill really, really holds his own. He's such an intelligent guy, and I think perhaps from the three I chose, Martin O'Neill would be a close fourth. He's such an intelligent, intriguing guy, and from his background, from winning the European Cup twice with Nottingham Forest to managing Celtic, to managing Leicester as well, brilliant experience, brilliant football man, and an all-round good guy. Really, 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 really good crack. And from what you said from that night at the Hydro, everybody was just kind of hanging on to his every word. You know, he just had that kind of that aura, definitely. Yeah. Sorry, Stephen. I stole ahead. I was just trying to kind of buffer up the episode of the podcast because it's pre-season. But I will let you go back to what you were talking about. Sorry, mate.
No, I enjoyed that. Didn't know it was coming, so it was quite a surprise, and that's why I was on the spot as usual. With you, Gav, you always put me on the spot, which is quite fun. But see within that, someone, I think it was Sanfran, said in the comments, we'll keep it to two. Right? Don't want to go on about it for ages, but two players, Celtic players, on a deserted island, deserted. And you didn't want to be around them. So who's two players you wouldn't want to have a dinner chat with, or you wouldn't want to be around it? It could be because you think they're arrogant, because you think they're whatever. If you could pick two, who would they be?
Two players who I would not want to be in a conversation with.
That played for Celtic, yeah.
Ivo Berkovic.
Okay.
Ivo Berkovic. Oh, and I know they never played for Celtic, but John Barnes talks a lot. I was really, really offended whenever he accused Celtic fans of being racist for his time as a manager at Celtic, and I felt that he never understood that. He never understood why he had to go, why he wasn't good enough. And the fact that he used that as an excuse, I felt very offended, because Celtic fans are one of the most accepting fans communities that you'll ever find in football. I felt I really took offence whenever John Barnes said that. And John Barnes is quite, I don't want to say he's an intelligent guy, but I don't think he is from the way that he accused us of that. I never worked out for John Barnes, but I was really offended that he said that. John Barnes talks a lot. He was a great player. Lot too. Well, if you call rap and singing, but fantastic player. But I think he just had a bad perception. Sometimes things can go wrong in football, but you don't blame yourself. You don't self-analyze, but you blame other people. You blame the society or whatever. I lost a lot of respect for John Barnes for that particular thing. So Ivo Berkovic and John Barnes for me.
Ivo Berkovic and John Barnes for Gav. It was Beaton and DeCanio for Sanfran. Chris Commons and Kenny Miller, pricks for Strains of the Doctor. Who would you pick, James?
DeCanio was one of mine as well. The other one is purely personal to me is Dan Mostorovic. Fucking outside Parkhead was a wee guy and he stole my pen, signed everybody else's stuff, took my pen away with him and didn't sign my stuff. So he's a baldy banger. And I was going to say the Canio was my second pick. Chris Coleman's a great shout. Forgot about him as well. But I'll say Greg Taylor purely so he can't go to Ross's dinner party.
There's Faduga, Sean the Mackin. Do you know that exact same thing happened to me? We went on a school trip over to watch. I think it was like Celtic against Kilmarnock, one of them games. We're in about 2006, and we're in the parking area of Celtic Park, and Strachan was there for whatever reason. I remember it clear as day. And we were coming off the bus, and there was a big mad rush to get to him and get the autograph. And I was the pen guy. I was the guy who Gordon Strachan took my pen and didn't fucking give it back. And everyone got their shirt signed by like Presley, and I think Scott Brown of Anders Snow came out, and a few other first teamers. And there's me sitting with no pen because Gordon Strachan fucked off with it. So it's like incredible. But I would still like to have dinner with Gordon Strachan. He seems like a good laugh. But I do get what you mean. There's a couple of other ones there. And Faduka. No one said, was it Mo Johnson, the guy who fucking. Yeah, no one said him. I'm actually quite surprised at that, to be fair. But look, Gav, we'll move on. Okay, we'll good wee segue. I enjoyed that. We'll put that in more. It was good crack. Maybe you won't laugh at people's answers next time. But Celtic are interested. Well, again, in a winger. I'm going to try and pronounce this, so please bear with me. Balakawisha. His nickname is Wee Ange, apparently. So he plays for Royal Antwerp in Belgium. I think he has 11 to 10 goal contributions. He's over 6 foot. He can play across the front three. Also as a false nine, as a false nine striker. Do you think this is a good sign that we're after these types of profiles? You spoke about it before. The Celtic board could have been putting multiple names to Rodgers, but he's rejected them. That this guy seems to be valued around 8 to 9 million euros by Royal Antwerp. Decent pedigree, Belgian underage international, 22 years old, good physical profile, pace and power and athleticism that Rodgers talks about. So if that is one that can go over the line, there was a Belgian journalist just before we come on and read it on Twitter saying that Celtic and Rodgers have spoke directly to this individual player. So if this is true, then that's a positive sign. And if we get a signing like that over the line for the front three, that could be a good thing into this season.
Well, you can watch YouTube clips until you're fucking dead. That's a strange comment, isn't it? The proof will be in the pudding. If Rodgers has identified him as a player that he wants, then I will put faith in it. I know that Rodgers likes physical players, people with power. And if this guy has got that, then I would like to see it, because the wingers that we've got right now are powder puff.
Mm-hmm.
We are going into this season with Maida on the left, and yes, James Forrest definitely much on the right wing, because we need to continue our faith in James Forrest. But we've spent money on Nicholas Kuhn, we've spent money on Palma, and if you talk about power, they are severely lacking in it, and they flatter to deceive. Palma with his expert delivery, that brilliant left foot. Nicholas Kuhn with his frightening pace. It's really not frightening after all, isn't it? Because Nicholas Kuhn has not made a difference in the games where it mattered most. If you talk about the final games, whenever in the post split, last season against like Kilmarnock, against Hearts, against Rangers, did Palma, did Nicholas Kuhn really rise to the fore? No, it was James Forrest and it was Maida. The guys have been over the course. So I think we definitely need to recruit in the wings. So if we're going to be believing that Maida is going to be our left winger, we need to recruit a right winger.
Mm-hmm.
So this guy, I think he's below 6 foot. I think he's about 5'10". This Belgian guy, he's definitely.
My facts and figures are wrong, will it?
I'm looking at transfer market, and that might not be true. I think he's about 5'10", 5'11", 1.78 meters. I think he can play in the left. Happy with that. My dad, I know that he plays in the left, but people can interchange. So I'm not concerned about that. But the guys get pace. We need pace. I love a winger with pace, but you need more than that. Nicholas Kuhn's get pace, but you need to be able to do deliveries. You need to be able to cut inside with assertion, and you want defenders to shit themselves. And I don't think our wingers, apart from James Forrest and Maida, those two give defenders the fear factor. But Nicholas Kuhn and Palma, they don't have that fear factor. We need more of that. And this is where we need the scouting department to really earn their corn. They need to sing for the supper. Why are we paying them money if, over the past couple of transfer windows, they have not unearthed anything good? In fact, they've caused more damage than what they've, provided for us. They're actually a liability right now about scouting department. They need to up their game. And if this is a guy that they've identified, then I really want Brendan Rodgers to run the rule over it, because we don't have a scouting department. So who's making the decisions? Is it Brendan Rodgers? Is he get the final say in this one? And who's helping him? So I'm concerned right now about recruitment. We need to bring in quality. So this guy on transfer market, it said he's worth €9 million. Who knows? Who knows? I wouldn't put too much stock in his YouTube clips. But we lost Abada. Now, Abada for his ability, he did have ability. He was frustrating as hell, but he did have some ability. So what are we replacing him with? We need to do a like-for-like comparison here and bring in quality. But time will tell, mate.
Yeah, time will tell. But by all accounts, as I said, Rodgers has been in direct contact with the player, James. And like Gavin said, if he's making the final choice, then it should be a good thing. But then who identified the player? Who brought the player to the attention of Brendan Rodgers? And that's just one he had earmarked from years ago when he was at Leicester, or does someone he's kept an eye on because of potential and things like that. As Gav said there, he's worth up to €9 million. He can play on the left. I think he is primarily left-sided, I think, but he's played in multiple positions across the front, which is encouraging. We do need to replace that. And if you look at our wingers, I mean, we did not replace Jota. We've signed 2 or 3 wingers since then, and none of them, even combined as a trio, Kuhn, Palma and Yang, are nowhere near the quality that Jota offered us, which is a crying shame of the recruitment department and the failure on Mark Lowell and his team's behalf, which led to his eventual departure. But I'm quietly excited about it. The other club interest is Rennes. They play in France, according to this. That Belgian journalist, who, by the way, has over 104,000 followers on Twitter, so he has a bit of substance. It's not someone I found who has like 2 followers and created his account yesterday. So I'm guessing he has a bit of know-how of the Belgian transfer market and football scene. But would you be encouraged by a signing like Weans, as he's being dubbed?
We definitely need wingers. Further enough, we've got loads of wingers, like we've said there, and I think we're all forgetting as well that it's currently the 19th of July, so Mikey Johnson must have at least 3 last chances left. So he's still in the building. But no, Maida is probably, well, definitely is our best winger, and even he splits opinion within our support. And then you're looking at guys like Palma and Forrest. I really like Palma, but I wouldn't bank on him for the course of a full season. I don't think he's consistent enough, as has been proven. To be honest, I haven't seen anything at all in Yang that makes me think he's going to be do anything here. Similar with Yang. So we've got the numbers, we just don't have that Q word again that we so often talk about in transfer windows, even though one of them was signed in January as the quality signing. So wingers it's an area that we need to improve for me. But I think in order to do that, we're going to need to get one, if not a couple, off the books as well, because we really are kind of heavy in the position.
James, who would you shift apart from Mikey Johnson? Who would you shift? Yang, Palma, Kuhn.
I'd keep Palma. I would keep Palma. Like Palma. Kuhn, if I had my way, he wouldn't be here, but I think he'll be here. Obviously because he's only been here 6 months. Mikey Johnson would have been away genuinely about like in 5 years ago. Who else is there? Who said I'd keep my Idah, keep Palma. Forrest is going to be here anyway. But I'd get shot at Johnson. If I had my way, I'd get shot at Kuhn as well, and I'd get shot at Yang as well.
Can I actually say something, Stephen? Sorry for interrupting. See that thing for JT boy 67. Kuhn was suffering from dental surgery. I heard on Twitter. Okay, so you know Clarence Seedorf, a fantastic midfielder, one of the best of his generation. Now, whenever he went to Italy, he was playing for Inter Milan, and he never got going. He had injuries. Now, it never worked out for him. But AC Milan signed him from Inter Milan. One of those kind of, I find it strange how Italian clubs can do that from direct rivals. But whenever he signed for AC Milan, one of the team doctors ordered Seedorf to have a dental assessment, and I found out that he had like a major problem with one of his teeth. And apparently, once that got rectified, it had an impact on his playing ability, which for me as a layman, that sounds mental. But apparently, dental problems can have a major impact on your physical capabilities, like your actual body. And Seedorf, as soon as he got that rectified, that tooth problem rectified, he started playing amazingly well, and he became one of the best midfielders of the generation. So, from the comment from JT Boy, although that from me it sounds ridiculous to say, oh, he's got a wee bit of toothache, you know, the tooth fairy will sort it out. But sometimes that, even though it sounds innocuous and it sounds like you're being a wee fairy, sometimes like apparently a bit of tooth problems can actually have a massive consequence on your physical capabilities. So that was just a wee anecdote I tell about Seedorf that I wanted to add in there. I will shut up.
Well, I think as well though with teeth issues. I mean, you know yourselves when you have toothaches, it goes up into your head and goes down into your body and affects you all around. And some of your teeth can have direct consequences with your heart and cardiovascular system too. I think that's well proven. And if Kuhn is recovering from that and he's going to get better, build up his strength, and like you say, it's frightening pace, Gav, then I am genuinely excited to see what he can potentially do in a Celtic top. And you asked James the question, who would he get rid of? For me, I would punt Palma out the door on a free. I would rip up his contract. I think he's like, I have no words to describe him. I really don't. His stats look good, but the eye test, he feels it 9 times out of 10. Yang, I get rid of him now. I've seen enough of Yang recently as well. Even the pre-season games, he hasn't shown up when he should be. He should be one of the guys in there, fit and firing, ready to go and stake a claim for their first team jersey, but he's not there at all. Kuhn I would keep, Forrest I would keep, Maeda I would keep, and then you build from there, really. You're building from a base of them three. And if you bring this guy in from Royal Antwerp, then we'll see. Did Stephen just say he would pump Palma? No, it definitely wouldn't pump. I'd pump him out the club. That's what I'd do. Get him out of the club. But in terms of the rest of the areas of the team, Gav, where would you strengthen? Now, again, a lot of this is caveated with the fact that Matt O'Reilly's still there. So if you want to play about with that, on the pretense that he'll stay, where would you still strengthen?
Okay, so starting from the back, goalkeeper been sorted. We need to get a centre back. Lagerbielke, Nawrocki. Apparently somebody's got a voodoo doll for Nawrocki and they're just doing that to him constantly. The guy's he's never ever going to get a chance. Lagerbielke, well, a lot of people made a judgment from the first game at Ibrox last season. Brendan Rodgers, who's far more knowledgeable than me, has made his mind up. The deal was already done. I'm actually quite perplexed that Lagerbielke has not been punted already, because the deal was done with an Italian club. Why is that not being resurrected?
He'll be at Aberdeen. He'll be at Aberdeen by the start of the season.
Well, I want him out. I want him out because whenever that relationship is fractured between the player and the manager, and you know that you're not fancied, we need to get him out. It's best for everybody. So get him out. We need a centre back. We need somebody to we need the replacement to Starfelt. And we've not properly done that. Scales is a stopgap. I spoke to you whenever we joined the podcast last season, and I said to you, will you be disappointed if Scales is still the centre back alongside Kamikata Vickers whenever we kick off the season? And you said yes, and I totally agreed with you. But at the moment, it looks like Scales is still the man. Nobody has usurped him from that position. So we need a centre back. However, probably another very, very in-demand position is left-back. Greg Taylor is a man in his own. You know, he runs his own department. There is no other left-back. It's quite gallus of Brendan Rodgers halfway through last season that Brendan Rodgers says we'll finish off the season without a replacement for Greg Taylor because Bernabei was that bad. You would rather do without a replacement for your first choice, you know, than have him in the corridors. He was that bad. Thankfully that we managed to make it through last season without any injuries, but we need a left back, whether it be to give him competition or whether it be like you're going to be our main man and Greg Taylor will be second in command. I don't care. We need another left back. So centre back, left back. Now, you're talking about Mattarelli staying. If Mattarelli stays and we bring in Bernardo, and we've still got Awata, we've still got Hitati, we've still got Cal McGregor, we've still got Odin Home, and we may or may not have Daniel Kelly, then no, I'm not gonna shake that one. So we can keep the midfield as it is. But if Mattarelli goes, we need to spend good, not a project signing. Yep. We need to spend good for a Mattarelli replacement. Ideally, athleticism, technical ability, and a bit of experience. That'll come at a premium. And the other thing is, wingers. I hate the wingers at Parkhead right now. I really hate them. We've got Maida, we've got James Forrest. Everybody else, yeah, I would deport them to Rwanda. And up front, I would. O is gone. Idah has not been back in the building. So we need to get to it. Vata was going to be the third choice. Vata is gone. So seemingly we cannot promote from within. So we need one, a good one, to give Kyogo competition and somebody different, a counterfoil to Kyogo. But apparently we now need to get two centre forwards. But the main priority is centre back, left back, a winger, maybe two wingers, and a centre forward.
It is. It sounds like a hefty rebuilding job, doesn't it? But it just shows you that the state of disrepair we're in, James, after the shambles of last season and the recruitment department. And then, as you said, the quality signing that we got, Nicholas Kuhn, in January, hasn't really cut it either. And kind of piggybacking off what Gav said, there's a lot of positions that we need, even just squad fillers. And I hate squad fillers, but we need competition for Greg Taylor. Can we get better? I hope so. We need a centre back to partner Carter Vickers. We need a third option in the striking position. And actually, we only have one at the minute, Kyogo, because Alameda, again, is with Norwich, and our backup strikers, Rocco Vada, isn't there no more. Joey Dawson maybe is on the pre-season trip, but even that's not good enough. And it's quite incredible. And there's a few people in the comments saying, what about Mitchell Frame as backup for left back? What about Anderson, who had a great season at Meadowhacker? I'm saying that wrong again, but you know, he was in their team of the year, the Austrian second tier, which is a good achievement. But he hasn't even been around pre-season. I haven't seen him on a team sheet. I haven't seen him in training, which is a bit concerning. I thought he would have been involved after a great season that he had. Maybe he's injured. I don't know. But where do you stand on this? Do you think it is a rebuild? It sounds like one. It really does. But yeah.
Ian, this is where my kind of negativity comes into it, because it didn't need to be. We didn't need to be looking at this rebuild. Had we done business last summer and then in January when it was required. Look, the goalkeeper obviously was the main priority, and that's kind of ticked off the list now. And the thing that worries me, and look, I think the one thing that we don't need is squad players. We need players to come in and take places in the
Totally
starting
agree.
11. So in an ideal world for me, whether it happens or no, Greg Taylor becomes the backup. We go out and spend the money on a left back who comes in and takes Greg Taylor's place. We go out and spend money in a centre back who comes in and takes Liam Scales' place. And top of that, I think we need a winger. Take him in, Idah on one side and a new winger in the other, and a striker. Possibly two strikers. I've always been of the opinion that you need three. You should have three strikers, whether it's two and maybe a kind of promising youth player, which Vata appeared to be. Then aye, but for me, even in Tappy, that in an ideal world, I'd maybe like to sign another right back. I don't think Ralston is good enough. I think he showed that at the Euros, to be honest. I don't really think he's reliable, but then...
How dare you? How dare you?
They say it did look every inch as if there was a Bricky playing for Scotland at right back, to be fair. But at the same time, though, I've just contradicted myself because I said I wouldn't sign squad players, so I don't think Ralston's going to be going anywhere. So I don't think that will happen. And I'll say the same thing, I feel as if I've said for the last decade. In an ideal world, we sign a centre defensive midfielder, a big tackle your granny type player, more with the idea of the Champions League in mind as opposed to domestically. But I just feel it's something that we miss, and it's something that the best teams in Europe have got, is an out-and-out hoarding midfielder. And it's something that we've not had for a while. But I think that seems to be by design, because we've not had one for years and years. But for me now, the priority has to be left back, centre back, a winger, and a striker. If that's for me, that's 4 non-negotiables.
Yeah,
I think
no,
that
totally
has to be
wrong.
done. And I based off absolutely nothing, I can't shake the feeling that we're going to sign Owen Beck on like deadline day or something. I just cannot shake that feeling. But
Please.
I think we need to go out and spend some money in the first team as opposed to the squad.
I do think it's a mad position we're in at the basically middle part of July. We haven't really spent a penny apart from £1 million on Sinisalo from Aston Villa, which we know the positions, we can identify the positions, we've talked about it at great length, that need strengthened, but it seems like this board aren't acting on that. I mean, in the comments, there's P. McLaughlin is putting up players I've never heard of, but he likes them. The scouting team should be doing this. Whoever they may be, they should be doing this and on the ball, but it just doesn't seem to be happening. And look, I want to give Rodgers and the team as much leeway as I can. I honestly do believe Rodgers has said no to about 1 million project players, which is a fantastic thing. But I hope he's going to get the backing that he rightly deserves and he's rightly got in the bank to get the players he needs. And like you said, James, squad fillers is one thing, but we need players to come in now and replace the likes of Greg Taylor, replace the likes of whoever may be in midfield, up front, Kyogo. We need to keep evolving as a team. We're playing 8 games in the Champions League this season. We need to compete. We need to get results, and not just turn up and say it was great being there and then having a few opposition players saying the atmosphere was fantastic and fucking use that as a plaque of achievement in years to come. It doesn't work like that for me. We need to compete. We need to be stronger. We need to invest in the team. That there David Lowe thing with the Celtic exchange, Gavin, if you just want to touch on it briefly,
Yes.
he said that our market value was over £250 million in the stock market, which is incredible. And Razors is sitting at 25 million at this precise moment. We're 6 to 7 times more valuable than them. We've got over 70 plus million in the bank. And it's like, what's going on? Even David Lowe, who was involved in that takeover when Fergus McCann saved the club, he was kind of perplexed as to why we aren't really signing players in around that £5 to £7 million bracket, or even pushing the boat out to someone at 9 to 10 million. He didn't obviously say do it every season, but he was kind of going, he would expect the board to do something of that nature. But again, it's not happening. But what did you think about that kind of episode that you shared with the group today? I thought it was quite insightful. I mean, breaking down the ownership structure, I thought was quite good as well.
Yeah, so to the guys in the comments, so there's a Celtic podcast called the Celtic Exchange Podcast. I'm sure that you are well aware of it. From the people in the comments, I know that a few of you have actually commented on a few of their episodes. I think that they're doing brilliant work. They're a totally different podcast from us. Like for us, we're more about the kind of making an arse of yourself, like for me anyway, and like interacting with the viewers. But for the Celtic Exchange podcast, a lot of it's kind of pre-recorded. But they have been doing, especially pre-season, a lot of historic Celtic episodes, which I think whenever you're a Celtic fan, one of the best parts of being a Celtic fan is our history and the relationship that we have with it and our enjoyment about talking about it. And one of the most recent episodes that they did was from a guy called David Lowe, who worked with Fergus McCann in the 90s during the takeover. And he spoke about one of the most intriguing things. He spoke about the ownership of Celtic as a club from its inception in 1887 up until today. He spoke about how we went from a club to a limited company to a PLC, and how the Kellys and the Whites and the Grants were the kind of the main people governing our club, and eventually how Fergus McCann took over, and then eventually, subsequently to that, how the Dermot Desmond became the majority shareholder. And I don't know much about the guy's background, about his biases. Certainly, well, he will have bias to Fergus McCann, but it's unambiguous the results of the takeover from Fergus McCann and how we would not be where we are right now at the top of the tree in Scottish football without Fergus McCann. The guy speaks really, really well. Watch it. I'll try and put a link in the group chat if we can.
What a podcast. We're directing traffic the other podcast. I mean, you wouldn't get that anywhere else in the world, like, would you? It's
well, we're a totally different podcast from what they are. You can watch it on your own. But I thought it was brilliant the way that the guy spoke and the way that Tino, the host of the podcast, kind of spoke about certain questions that he had as a Celtic fan. He's coming at it from a Celtic fan point of view. Another guy, although he is a Celtic fan, he was able to talk about another thing that people talk about is fan ownership, and that sounds brilliant on paper. But this guy David Lowe talks about the perils of fan ownership and why it's safe to have a split ownership about people who've got corporate experience to guide the club through trials that only people with business experience would have. So watch it. I thought it was great. The takeaway from it, it kind of solidified my point of view that Fergus McCann is not a villain. I know that some Celtic fans will always view him as a villain, and because we had like Pierre Van Hooydonk Cadet, DeCanio leaving us, who were like fan favourites, and you thought, well, they were up against a frugal Fergus McCann who would not shift at all. But Fergus McCann was right to do what he did, because the foundations that he laid meant that we would be, in terms of season tickets, we would have more than what Rangers would. So every year we're going to earn more money than what Rangers will ever do, because we have got more season tickets. We've got more money flow than what our rivals do. But the crux of the matter is, what do we do with that money? He did speak about that. Another intriguing topic, Stephen, I don't know what your thoughts on it were, was the guy David Lowe said that Celtic don't do damage in Europe because of the competition in Scotland. We don't have any competition. We are the cream of the crop, or the top of the tree. And he said that for Celtic to do well, we need a strong Rangers.
I didn't really agree with that, to be fair. I think for us to do well, it's about evolving and it's about investing in the team, and then you eventually compete against teams in the top table European football. I mean, you look at the Austrian League, RB Salzburg, you look at Club Brugge, you look at Ghent, you look at all these teams, and they followed a similar pattern, a similar recruitment structure, a similar path of development. And I think Celtic have been on that path, but fear of it from time to time, which leaves us well behind in European football. Rangers, to me, should have been, well, they are dead and buried, but they should have been out of existence altogether. We do not need them to survive. We do not need them to make money. I understand what he meant in terms of the fact when they were out of the top leagues, the top leagues of the SPL, that we had stands that were covered in flags and banners. But again, you can kind of counter that and say if Celtic had the foresight to appoint the Rodgers even after Ronnie without Rangers in the league, then I still think that would have spiked the interest of the supporters again. And it kind of spikes you to think you're going to do well in Europe. I think sometimes, yes, the domestic success is bliss and it's fantastic and all that, but the bigger picture is European football. And what you need for European football is investment. Investment in better players, investment in better methods, investment in better recruitment departments, and that should feed onto the pitch and eventually feed into European football, is where I think we can evolve and do better. I understand the point. I like the term he used, sparring partner. That was a good term to have that club you can have a back and forth with. But we do not need a Rangers that's competitive. We do that game, the Glasgow Derby. If Rangers were sitting 11th in the table, it'll still be sold out. It was still it's a game that sells itself. It doesn't need sold. So I get the financial aspect of things. I don't think affects us too much without them. I really don't. It's again, I get it, but from my point of view, we can survive and thrive without them around. I don't know what you think, Gav or James. James, I'll pass it to you because me and Gav spoke about it there quite briefly. But do you think we need us?
I've not had a chance to see the podcast you're speaking about. We'll hopefully catch it the more at some point, or maybe even stick it on after this. But look, this is where I know there's the waiting list for the season books and things like that. The new and a lot of people were saying about expanding the stadium, increasing the capacity, and that's my thinking. That it's not that long ago that the banners were there. Do you know what I mean? And look, the reality was they weren't there in the league at the time, and I know there was penny pinching with the Dyla appointment that didn't quite work out how it was supposed to. I get all that, and look, as I said, I can't really speak too much because I haven't seen it, but it just always sticks in the back of my head that we see these things, and it sounds really good and all that, but it happened, and we seen it, and when they went out the league, and absolutely we played a part in it with appointments, but the banners went up, and then it took that kind of box office appointment of Brendan Rodgers the first time around to get punters back. So that's why, as I say, without having seen the podcast, and obviously I'm not speaking on anything that was said on there, just after the back of what you have said, look, it's great having the waiting list there for the season books now, but I think the talk of the stadium expansion and everything like that is a wee bit premature, because I've always just got that thing in the back of my head that it isn't that long ago that we had the banners up my tap tier. So I know it's kind of not really what you asked, but as I say, I can't really talk on because I've not seen it.
Yeah. What about you, Gav? Do you think we need a strong Sevco? Can he not hear me? Can you hear me, James?
Is my internet shite?
Aye. Either that or your ears off.
Right, we'll try it again. Do you think, Gav, we need a strong Sevco to do better in Europe? I mean, evidence suggests we don't because we're still doing shite with or without them anyway.
Look, I'm not an expert on it, okay, but if you were to analyse when were we strongest in Europe, if we're to be honest with ourselves, when were we strongest in Europe? So what the Celtic team who went to Seville, we never won a trophy that season. We certainly never won the league that season. And we were up against so Dick Advocat, maybe McLeish was a manager at that time. They were bolstered by the EBTs, you know. So financial doping, of course, but let's admit they had a good team at that time, whether that was on merit or whether it was through illegal means. We had a very, very good team that time. So let's kind of put that as a screenshot. 1970, 1967, Rangers weren't shite either. You know, they were always pushing us. They were always pushing us in the 60s and the 70s. In 1972, obviously, Rangers got to the Cup Winners' final and won. So in that decade, they had very, very good players, but we were just better than them. I find it difficult to measure the success of the Rangers team whenever we were that good because we were winning everything. So it's really, really difficult to measure that. So I can't make an argument coherently with it. But if Rangers were that shite, then whereas domestically, like Celtic are run as a business nowadays anyway. So if you fast forward to now, so say Rangers were put back into League One, our closest rivals are like Hearts, Aberdeen, Hibs. Where is the necessity to strengthen whenever your competition is like that?
That's a wrong mindset to be in.
I agree, but we are thinking about it from a fan perspective. The people who govern us think about it differently. They think about winning the treble, you know, and doing what you can in the league. That's how. Doing what you can in Europe. They're not plotting a mark in the map in the Champions League to say that's where we want to get. That's not how they think. They're thinking about shareholders. They're thinking about sweeping up domestically and just doing what you can in Europe and keeping a good balance sheet. And that's where we are. So I think if competition was heightened up with the strong Rangers, then it would probably heighten the targets. If we were bored, it'd make them work harder. So part of me thinks that stronger competition means a stronger Celtic. I think with a weaker Rangers means a weaker Celtic. People might hate that point of view.
I think you're bang on because the one complaint, at least since I've kind of started doing this personally, the one thing that I think's been said more than anything else is that Celtic will never look to strengthen from a position of strength. We always seem to get to that apex. We think we'll kick on and we'll keep going and we'll have a go at Europe. And the reality is, more often than not, the exact opposite. With the perfect chance for it last season, it didn't happen. We now find ourselves in the position where, albeit the football wasn't as good as it has been in the past last season, but we still managed to win a double. You look across the water and, well, they're no win. they're literally no win. And they're signing frees and they're having to settle, do you know what I mean? And so we find ourselves again at that. It's like we get our foot in their throat and we just don't apply the pressure. We just always let them get back up. And I want Celtic, and it's something I've said time and time before. I want Celtic to be the best Celtic can be. I don't want them to just be a nose ahead of Rangers, and that seems to be the board's mentality. I've said on here before, we're trying to smash through a glass ceiling, and it feels as if the board are getting the fucking double glazing in to stop that from happening, because that's where it's stemming from. Like Gav says, we look at this from a supporter's point of view, and obviously we want Celtic to be getting into the Champions League and no looking like the Whitman boys, hopefully having a fighting chance at actually doing something. But if we're being honest, we're a million miles away from it. And if there isn't a change, it's probably going to be that way for a while. I mean, we were getting to the point like last season. We were competitive in the games. We were still out with a game to go. So how competitive were we really? And look, I understand the point. I get the sentiment here, but points make prizes. And if you're no getting the points on the board, then it doesn't matter if you get there or no, really. The money's banked, and that's basically all the Champions League is for us currently.
Hi, Stephen. One of the other, by the way, to the viewers, watch that podcast that we spoke about. I think a lot of good points are kind of raised. Another thing, Stephen, is the fact that we're about to post our new financial accounts. That's coming. But there will be no surprise as to roughly the kind of the headline figure that it's going to be. So last year, 70 million in the bank. But the question raised in that particular podcast about the guy who's very, very financially astute is why is a business who have got a successful model, a successful trading performance, why are they hoarding cash? Whenever you look at it, you question why. Sometimes whenever a business is building up cash, it's because they plan to do something with it. They plan to for businesses buy another business, to take over another business. We're not going to do that. Maybe to purchase a property. Now we're already developing what that place is. Sorry,
Barrowfield.
Thank you, mate. Thank you. That's not costing an arm and leg. We're just developing on it. We're not fucking building Rome upon that. We are hoarding cash reserves. And in terms of, you spoke about it earlier, the disparity between Celtic and Rangers in terms of a share price. We're worth 250 million approximately right now, and Rangers are worth about 10% of it in terms of the stock market. That can change overnight. That doesn't mean that much on the field, but from a business perspective, what is the aim? Where are we going with this? Where are we investing this money? We know that we identify, we make a lot of money through player investments, the transfer model, like Matt O'Reilly, Kieran Tierney, Wanyama, etc., Van Dijk. If we're really that good at that, why don't we do it more often? Why don't we really put a lot of money into, scouting the diamond in the rough? But whenever we get all that money, what are we doing with it? Where is the purpose? If we're not going to buy Adam Idah for 12 million, which we debated about earlier on in the podcast, probably a ridiculous notion anyway. What are we doing? Like, are we going to build a museum? We're going to build a hotel? What are we doing? Like, we spoke about the issue, which none of us like to speak about, that court case, but that court case appears to be covered by lawyer insurance, which was put in place. If that was not the case, we'd probably hear about it, that the insurance would not cover it. So what are we doing with all that money? It's unnatural for a growing business to hoard all that money and not invest it, reinvest it, and propel us, get better players, bigger salaries, and we'll get better in Europe. That's where we want to be as fans. But from a business perspective, if you're like a financial analyst, which I'm not, you look at it and like, okay, you've got great money. Well done. What are you going to do with it? What are you doing with it? What is the end goal?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of different variables. So this Maestro comes in. Do you think the money being banked is moving us into a bigger league, shows where we are financially viable? People are going to come up with these different theories as to why, Gav. And I've seen rumours before that companies hoard cash to make them a sellable asset, to make it attractive to a potential buyer. I heard rumours before there was a Hong Kong-based billionaire apparently was going to put in a bid. This was last year for a controlling stake in the club. All these things are just rumours and things you see on Twitter. There's nothing really to go by. But the theories that I have is what you mentioned was in my mind for ages was the court case. If that's covered by insurance, then that shouldn't be an issue. Albeit the victims deserve all the compensation they're rightly entitled to, because what happened was an absolute fucking disgrace. And whatever they're entitled to, they should rightfully get. And the club should rightfully give them what's been agreed, whether it's through insurance or through the bank that they have at the moment. But park that aside, if that's not the issue here. I mean, you're talking about FFP rules. We well qualify for that now. We could easily buy 10, 15 million pound players and not be sniffed at by FFP because we've got the money sitting there in the bank, just accumulating cash on top of cash. Even David Loeb was perplexed as to why they're sitting on that amount of money. And I think it was, what was his name, Tinto? I can't remember what you said, but apologies. Was saying that Peter Lawwell basically put out an apology letter before last year's account saying that they've got too much money in the bank, and that's a crazy thought to have. I don't know. The simple answer for me is I don't know what the money's doing there, Gav. I don't know what we're keeping it for. And the board are basically bringing this kind of backlash on themselves. We as fans can see what's available. We can see what is there in the accounts. We can see we can see what's available to spend. And we're rightly asking questions as to why the board aren't doing it. So they're bringing on the heat themselves. They're bringing on the backlash from the fans because everything's out in the open because it's on the stock market. They haven't given us a valid excuse as to why this money's being kept. Is it the hotel? Is it building the hotel and the museum together? Is it Barrowfield's taking up maybe 40% of the budget? They haven't come out and said this, so it's all speculation. All we know as fans at the moment, because I'm no financial expert, I'm no data analysis, I have no idea about all that stuff, but it's interesting. We're sitting there probably now with upwards of £90 million in a bank account somewhere that's not being touched for whatever reason. And to me, it is crazy. Like, why is that not being put back into the team? If I was Brendan Rodgers, I'd be going, rapping the board door every day, ringing Desmond every day, being like, what's going on with this money? I want X, Y, and Z. Get this done. The money's there. It's out in public view. Stop hiding behind it. Fucking be ambitious and get us to the next level in Europe. And it kind of comes back into what I was saying as to why I believe we don't need a strong Sevco. Because if we done it the right way, we'll be miles ahead of them anyway. So is that to say if we get miles ahead of them again, which we are we going to lay off again until they come back up to the level where we feel challenged or where the board feel it's acceptable to let them get to? It should never be about that. It should be about the club. It should be about us progressing European football and spending the money we have available in the bank. It's simple.
But see, exactly what you've just said there, is that not what's happened over the last 12 months?
It could be.
I mean,
yeah.
You think that when Ange left, having just won a treble, a great team, we lost a couple of players for that team, we lost the manager, you go out and get Rodgers and you think, right, we've lost Ange, obviously you're gutted at that, but we've went out and got Rodgers, who's no going to come in for pennies, so you're assuming he's going to be back, and then it just didn't happen. And then it didn't happen again in January, and here we are again having the same conversations. And to this point, it hasn't happened again. So I get what you're saying, Stephen, and I think you're looking at it in an ideal world scenario. But the history kind of shows that it literally exactly what you've just explained there is what happens. And we all heard the stuff after the betters and penalties at Hampden in the cup game all the years ago that. It was the Rangers directors laughing or making comments that spurred Desmond to go and get Brendan Rodgers, and that as long as that attitude is there, then you're always going to have problems. It shouldn't take that to make you want to be the best you can be, and that's where my issue always comes from. And I know we're going away off on a tangent, but for me, that's where it boils down to. Celtic, certainly for me, the Celtic board are happy to be a nod ahead of Rangers as opposed to just trying to be the best that Celtic can be. And while that attitude is in place, although everything you're saying in an ideal world makes perfect sense, but while that attitude is being applied, it's not going to happen.
Yeah, but again, the ideal world scenario, I get what you're saying to a point, but I'm not coming at it from that point of view. The figures are there. We can see the figures. And look, don't get me wrong, back when Strachan first came in, we knew we were in a period of downsizing. When Ronnie came in, we knew it was going to be project signings and things like that because the accountants and all would show that at the time. There is no excuse for us to be taking a backwards or a sideways step now to save money or to cut back on wages or whatever. There's no noise to suggest that is what we have to do. It just feels like you said, James, over the last 12 months, we've kind of went backwards in the squad front. And is it just to let them get up to that bit again, to have a title race, to build the interest, to build the fans buying merchandise, to get them all on board with that siege mentality? And if that is, it's fucked up that it's like that. if I was in the board, if I was in charge, purely from an emotional point of view here, obviously, we're going to be 10 times, 100 times, 50 million times better than them. Do you know what I mean? Should never, ever, ever let them get on the level of us. The fact that they came back up to the league and won a title and got the European final is abysmal in my point of view. That we even let them have a sniff at a title. I know it was the COVID season, but you said it previously. We put the foot on the throat, but then we ease off ever so slightly. And then we become complacent. We let them back in. We let them win trophies again when we should be that club who dominates Scottish football from top to bottom all the time, no matter what time of the year it is.
I think that's it. I think you get to a certain point of success and then they think, right, that's fine, we're miles in front. And whereas we look at it for the point, right, well, let's go, let's kick on in Europe. Look, nobody's saying we're going to win the Champions League or get to the semi-finals, quarter-finals or whatever. But we can look to, well, I know it's obviously restructured now, but we could have looked to have got third place or maybe sneak into second place and get into the last 16. We've done it before. I get the FIP has changed in a relatively short period of time in terms of the money involved in it, but it just doesn't happen. And that's, as I say, as long as that is in place, then like we've seen it at 4 trebles and everything like that. And the biggest example of it for me was appointing Neil Lennon the second time round. Appointing him on an interim basis, 100%. You needed somebody to come in, absolutely fine with it. But then, again, it's something I've said on here before. After that Hearts Cup final, walking back, everybody was getting in the tune, so we're walking back to Rutherglen to get the train, and everybody was buzzing, dancing, singing what you would expect having just won a treble. And then the news started to filter through that Lennon had been appointed full time, and then obviously come out this stuff about all the shivers and all that carry on that came for it. But the mood just completely died, and it was like, well, we all know how this ends. We've seen this kind of story before. Don't get me wrong, COVID happened, and obviously you couldn't really have foreseen football going the way that it did. But in the bigger picture is we were trying to coast again, and it just came back and bit us in the arse that time. And I think as I say, like the last 12 months, I think is another example of it.
Yeah, totally agree. And Gav, you've took us on some wild tangents tonight. It's been appreciative and enjoyed it. But before we wrap up, Gav, we're in America. The 3 games are DC United, Manchester City, and Chelsea in the next week. What's your hopes? What's your expectancy from these games? I've seen a lot of people saying they want to be hammered by Chelsea or City, even though it's pre-season. That could still be a possibility. I mean, the squad we've brought out there is Fredbear, and to say the least, we don't know what they're going to be lined up with. They've had a lot of players in the Euros and stuff. But are you of the opinion I know you say you don't give a shit, but these games are just purely fitness, they're exercise, or minutes in the legs, or would you be concerned if we do get a doing by any of the English clubs we're up against here in the next week or so?
Look, we'll probably get a doing from one of the English clubs, but if you put too much stock into that, then you're reaching, and you'll probably not watch football for too long, because pre-season friendlies are what they are. They're not competitive games. You're going abroad. You're trying to get fitness, and you may or not have strengthened your team. If you're going to put stock, like if we beat a team over there, you're going to be like, oh yeah, fucking every other team's got to come into them. We're going to hammer them. You're going to get confident. You're going to get overconfident if we beat Chelsea 2-0. And if Chelsea beat us 2-0, are you going to get despondent? Nah. We're too long in the tooth for that. Like, sadly, I'm in my 30s now. I'm in my late 30s now, man. And you're far too long in the tooth for that. You're not going to put any stock into friendlies. And I think actually when I was younger, I would genuinely, if I was on holiday, I would buzzing to go to a pub, watch the Celtic game. Like, we're going to play Chelsea at whatever time in the morning. I'll get up at that time, or I'll stay up until that time. And it'll be like a shite game. It'll be a training exercise. It is what it is. I think in holiday it's a wee bit more exciting, but at home, no, there's no excitement to it at all. There's no competitive edge. It's just about fitness and maybe try to kind of, for a manager to instill a new system. We're probably going to still be playing 4-3-3 next season. And at this moment, we've only got in a couple of goalkeepers. So there's nothing to be excited about. And there's nothing to be despondent about either. But watch the games all the same. Doesn't make you a bigger Celtic fan or a lesser Celtic fan if you get caught up in the excitement in it. Go for it. Go for it.
Celtic room doors will be coming off the hinges if we lose to Chelsea.
Aye, go for it.
I stayed up for that Everton game over to Sydney. Worst mistake of my life. It was absolutely horrendous. It was like 3 o'clock in the morning kickoff or something. I would have work the next morning and everything. I was gone with the wind. But
Stephen,
James,
are you enjoying the new setup for yourself in the podcast world with your new chair? It looks far more comfy.
It's comfy, mate, but again, I'm trying to find my right sitting position. I need to get the lighting sorted out, so I do. But no, this is a nice chair that I got from my granda who's watching. Brilliant recliner, does the job, very comfortable. So yeah, loving it.
Is your granddad's name Lorcan, or is that an alias?
It's Lawrence.
Okay, that makes sense.
There you go. And if it was an alias, I'd have fucked it up, didn't it, big time? But but James, what about yourself? Get into these games. I don't want to be hammered. I'll admit that. I don't want to be smashed up 6 or 7. But
you want to win, didn't you? I mean, I know we're saying on the last, but you want to win. But because I'm not a part-timer like Gav, I will sit up and watch it. No, I'm actually quite looking forward to it. I think I'm a pure sado. I quite like see the pre-season games in America. I always mind. We played Sporting Lisbon. I'm sure it was Fenway Park's a baseball kind of stadium park, whatever they're called. We played Sporting Lisbon there, and it was either nothing each or 1 each, and it was the worst game of football you've ever seen. But we ended up winning in penalties, and we got a trophy for it. So, I don't know how that counts in the record books, but no, I'm quite
Emirates Cup. We won the Emirates Cup, didn't we?
In the Wembley Cup, I was down at the
Wembley
Emirates Cup and we
Cup,
got hammered. The Wembley pint glass, the world's weirdest trophy. But no, I must admit, I'm looking forward to it. We've had that international muck. That's where in Dunway now, so we can get back to the real football. And I can't lie, I'm looking forward to it. As you say, like the result, you want to win, but I'm not going to read too much into it. Win, lose or draw, but no, I'm looking forward to sitting up watching it.
Yeah, I'll try and take in one of the games. I don't know when. It might be probably the Chelsea game. I'll probably have the best opportunity to. But
I think the Chelsea game's 9 o'clock next week. The other two are midnight.
Aye, so that works out better than the wee 9 o'clock one. But in regards to the chat, again, thanks everyone who's watching along. As I said, the Twitter. 2 seconds, Gav.
Do we have a quiz?
No. I had no time. So then, but you know yourselves, I didn't have time. I was dealing with 2 maniacs today. Flip me. But
Gav's just gutted that this podcast's under fucking 24 hours.
But in regards to our schedule, we're still a bit skew with at the moment, but hopefully we'll have two podcasts next week, obviously, because it's pre-season and build-up and stuff, and we'll get something sorted for the games anyway. In regards to spin-offs and rewinds, and we'll be getting them back in motion. I know Anthony is keen to get started again with his Champions League rewind, so they'll be coming. So it'll be buzzing that I give him a shout out again. But yeah, Gavin and James, have you enjoyed this one tonight?
I enjoyed it. Good laugh. Good to get back on. It's been a while, so right.
I just wish I had a quiz here that I could prolong this.
There you go. I'll ask you one question. Who was the first team to win a trophy at the new Wembley Stadium?
Celtic.
There you go. Stephen wins the quiz.
Okay.
Up ye. Yeah. And on that note, everyone, stay well, keep safe. Hail, hail.